This video is going to look at a couple more advanced techniques for layout when using Bootstrap. And specifically, I'm thinking about making magazine style layouts or kind of more interesting visual layouts here. So I've got a really basic Bootstrap project here, one that some students and I have been working on. And the first thing I want to mention, which we just haven't mentioned yet, is if I look at my code here, in Bootstrap, rows don't have vertical margin or padding on them. And so that creates situations like this, which usually we don't want. So the really simple fix here is to just create a rule for a row, and I'm going to say that the margin on my rows is, let's say, 1m0. So that means top and bottom are going to have one line of spacing. And you might see what you want for your site. You might want 2m's or something like that. You might want a lot more. It's kind of up to you. And I just want to note here that for my rows or for my columns, it's okay if I change the vertical margin or padding, but I never want to change the right and left margin and padding in Bootstrap because I don't want to break my grid. I always want to just use Bootstrap's grid in that direction, the horizontal direction. So the second thing that I want to look at is sometimes we can use a nice technique where we want to maybe draw attention to something or kind of separate something from the rest of the story. So here's that image we were looking at, and I have my column here, and I'm going to give this div a new class, and I'm going to call it, I'm just going to call it box for now. And what I want to do is create that effect where you get areas of the page that take up exactly the screen, okay? So I want it to take up this, and I want to put this image just in the middle of it to kind of isolate it and give it more weight, more of an effect. So I've got my class box here, and in styles.css, what I'm going to do is say things that have class box are going to have a height of 100 VH. And 1 VH is equal to 1% of the height of the viewport window, whatever the user's viewport window is. So 100 VH is going to say make it as tall as their viewport. So generally when we've done responsive design, we've thought about the width of the viewport, but here we're thinking about the height to make this take up exactly the height of the screen. Now, the second thing we would want to do here is we've already set justify content center to center it horizontally, but we can also say align content, I believe it's center. Yes. So that we now have this area of the screen that isolates this. And we could also put, say, a block quote instead of an image there, if you wanted to really emphasize some text. Block quote, this is emphasized and important. And then, well, that's strange. I could further go in and say, okay, when I have a box and then a block quote inside it, I want some special style on that. Let's just call it 12 M's. So obviously that's far too big. But that's how we would do that. So this is emphasized and important. Now, because this is all white, it's a little hard to tell that this section is exactly the height of the viewport window. So the other thing that I want to talk about today is up until now we have only used one container, okay, and everything has gone inside this container div. But if I want to put a background color here, which is a pretty common design technique, I'm going to use two containers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and close my container div. and I'll go ahead and copy and paste it here so that this row is now in a container. And then for this one, I'm going to use a container fluid because I want the container to stretch all the way across the page. And I'm also going to give that container a special class so that we can add a background color to it. So this is going to be a container fluid, and we'll call it highlight. So if I have something with class highlight, I'm going to say background color is 222 and text color is ed. So now we can see, oh, that's exactly the height of the window, and it's calling things out. Okay, so this is a nice way to draw attention, to kind of start thinking about how the parts of your story relate to each other, right? Like, does this part flow smoothly into this part, or is it jarring, right? This is also a technique you can use if you want to have a little bit of text on one page and then go to another page. So it would be more like a slide deck or something like that. So this gives you a lot of composition options that you can now start to play with. So the last thing I want to go over in this video is how to hide things in Bootstrap. So let's say that I like this, it's great, but for some reason I don't want to see it on mobile. I only want it on say medium screens and up, or I just want to have this this column on medium screens and up. So in Bootstrap, there's a class called dnone, and that will hide that. I would really want to do it here on the container. We'll move it up there. So d-none here, and this is all in the documentation. If you search for dnone, it's under display properties hiding elements. So just like when we were doing columns, dnone is my default. So now dnone is going to apply to all sizes. Okay, so here we don't have that row at all, or that container at all. And then if I say d-md-block, that says, okay, by default display none. But once we get to medium and up, you're going to do display block. So we're on medium and up, we display, and once we get down to a small screen, we're going to hide. And you can do that with anything. All right, so you could have a set of images that you don't show on mobile and you do show on desktop. You can also do things where you have alternate content depending on the size of the screen. So let's say I have this paragraph that's really long, and I'm going to say it is class, by default, I'm going to say it's display none, but on medium and up, it's display block. And then let's say this is maybe a shorter summary of this paragraph. So I want to show the summary if I'm on a small screen and show the big paragraph if I'm on a large screen. So here, my default is going to be display block, which we actually don't have to type. By default, it is display block. But we can say display medium none. So now on medium, I have my big text, and when I get down here, I go to my small text. Okay, so you can really start to customize exactly what users get on different screen sizes if you want to. Okay, so that's just some more advanced techniques, trying to give you more composition options, more options to think about how can I tell my story and how can my design support my storytelling.